Ford just priced a new electric truck at $29,945. That's not the shocking part. 2 years ago, Ford was losing $44,000 on every electric truck it built. Per truck, lost, so they killed the program and wrote off $19.5 billion. Less than 2 years later, that same company just promised a truck for under 30 grand, and its CEO is calling it his Model T moment. Here's why that's not just a marketing line: the crash before the comeback. To understand why the Fathom matters, you have to understand what came before it. And what came before it was a genuine disaster. Back in 2021, Ford unveiled the F-150 Lightning with massive fanfare. 200,000 advance orders before a single customer truck rolled off the line. It felt like Ford had cracked the code on the electric pickup. It didn't work out that way. Sales never matched the hype. The Lightning peaked at just over 33,000 units in 2024. Ford sells that many gas F-Series trucks in about 2.5 weeks. And it wasn't just underperforming, it was bleeding cash. Ford's electric vehicle division lost $2.2 billion in 2022, $4.7 billion in 2023, $5.1 billion in 2024. Over $13 billion burned, with no path to profit. Then, in December 2025, Ford pulled the plug. Production of the Lightning ended. A next-gen electric truck, codenamed Project T3, got canceled. Total damage: a $19.5 billion charge against earnings. Farley put it bluntly: the $50,000, $70,000, $80,000 EVs just weren't selling. People wanted electric power, but not at that price. Here's the part that matters, though. Ford didn't walk away from electric trucks. They walked away from building them the expensive way. Buried in that same announcement was a promise: an affordable EV platform starting around $30,000, arriving in 2027. At the time, it sounded like a hopeful footnote. Now it has a name, a price, and a factory. And Ford didn't build the Fathom by electrifying an existing gas truck the way they did with the Lightning. This time, a secret team in Long Beach, led by a 12-year Tesla veteran, built something from a blank sheet of paper, what Ford calls the Universal Electric Vehicle Platform. Farley calls it his Model T moment. We'll come back to exactly why that comparison isn't just spin. Meet the Fathom. So what exactly is this truck, and how does Ford get the price down that low without repeating the Lightning's mistakes? Let's start with the name itself, because Ford actually spent 9 months choosing it. Fathom has a double meaning, and Ford leaned into both. To fathom something means to understand it deeply, to get to the bottom of a hard problem. And a fathom is also a unit of measurement, 6 feet, traditionally used to measure the depth of water. Ford wanted a name that suggested capability and depth without borrowing a heritage nameplate like Bronco or Maverick. This is a genuinely new vehicle, so they gave it a genuinely new name. Now, the price. The Fathom starts at $28,350 before you add Ford's destination and delivery charge of $1,595. Add those together and you land at $29,945, just under that psychological $30,000 line Ford has been promising publicly for over a year. For comparison, that's roughly in the same neighborhood as a well-equipped Ford Maverick, Ford's compact gas and hybrid pickup that's become one of the best-selling small trucks in America. Ford is essentially telling truck buyers, you can go electric for close to the same money you'd spend on one of our most popular gas trucks. How is that even possible after the Lightning lost tens of thousands of dollars per unit? The answer is almost entirely in how the Fathom is engineered and manufactured, and this is where things get genuinely interesting for anyone who cares about how cars are actually built. First, the battery. The Fathom uses lithium iron phosphate cells, LFP for short, instead of the nickel manganese cobalt chemistry used in most EVs, including the Lightning. LFP batteries cost meaningfully less to produce, and they're more stable and durable over repeated charging cycles, though they typically pack slightly less energy density than nickel-based cells. Ford is sourcing these cells domestically from Blue Oval Battery Park, Michigan, a $3 billion plant using battery technology licensed from Chinese battery giant CATL. That's worth sitting with for a second. Ford's answer to Chinese EV competition partly runs through Chinese battery technology, built on American soil by American workers. It's a pragmatic move, not an ideological one, and it's exactly the kind of decision that separates companies that actually ship affordable EVs from companies that just talk about them. Second, the manufacturing process itself. This is genuinely the headline story for anyone who nerds out on how factories work. Traditional vehicles like the Lightning are assembled from well over 100 individual stamped metal parts that get welded and bolted together along a single long assembly line. The Fathom throws that approach out entirely. Ford is using massive aluminum unicastings, single enormous cast pieces that condense more than 146 individual parts into just two. Instead of one continuous line, Ford builds the truck in 3 separate sections simultaneously, which then come together near the end of the process. Ford calls this the assembly tree method, and it's being implemented at the Louisville assembly plant in Kentucky, where roughly $2 billion is going into retooling the factory. This approach isn't just cheaper, it's dramatically faster, requiring hundreds fewer workers per shift than the old-style line while still building a comparable number of vehicles. If some of this sounds familiar, it should. Tesla pioneered large single-piece castings on the Model Y, calling them gigacastings. Ford's borrowing a page from that playbook, but scaling it up in an even more aggressive way, condensing the entire body structure into essentially 2 massive pieces. There's also a new 48-volt low-voltage electrical architecture underneath everything, another concept Tesla popularized with the Cybertruck, which drastically cuts down on the sheer amount of copper wiring running through the vehicle. Less wiring means less weight, less cost, and fewer failure points. None of this is cutting corners for the sake of cutting corners either. Ford has been careful to say the Fathom won't be a stripped-down econobox. Standard equipment includes next-generation Blue Cruise, Ford's hands-free highway driving system, which on most competitors costs thousands as an option or a subscription. It includes bidirectional charging, meaning the truck's battery can power your home during an outage. Farley has claimed the Fathom will be able to keep a house running for up to 6 days. It gets a large touchscreen running navigation powered by Apple Maps, along with standard Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. There's a front trunk, and Ford says the interior will offer more passenger volume than a Toyota RAV4, despite this being a midsize pickup, not an SUV. We don't have final range numbers yet, and Ford has been cagey on power figures, but the company has said publicly that the truck will be quicker than a turbocharged Mustang and will offer amazing range from the standard battery pack, with longer range versions coming later at a higher price point. Pre-orders open in early 2027. Customer deliveries follow that fall. The price war nobody saw coming. Now let's put that $29,945 number in context, because on its own, a number is just a number. What makes it dangerous is who it's aimed at. Start with the electric truck market as it exists right now, today, in showrooms. The Rivian R1T starts around $71,700 to $72,000. The Tesla Cybertruck's cheapest configuration runs roughly $72,000, and its true best-selling configuration has reportedly been pushing past 6 figures once options get added. The Chevy Silverado EV starts at around $52,800. Even the GMC Hummer EV, admittedly a different kind of vehicle entirely, starts north of $90,000. Against every one of those trucks, the Fathom isn't just cheaper. It's in a different universe of cheap. We're talking about a gap of $20,000 to $40,000 or more between the Fathom and nearly everything else wearing an electric pickup badge in America right now. But Ford isn't the only company that's figured this out. There's a startup called Slate, backed in part by Jeff Bezos, building a genuinely bare-bones electric pickup in Indiana, starting around $24,950 to $27,495, depending on the exact configuration and timing of the announcement. Slate's truck is a two-seat single-cab pickup with crank windows, no touchscreen, and no radio standard. It's intentionally minimal. You buy the truck cheap and then accessorize it yourself. It's an interesting product, and it's earned a lot of enthusiasm from people tired of overloaded, over-teched-out vehicles. But it's also a fundamentally different kind of vehicle than the Fathom. Slate is selling simplicity as the feature. Ford is trying to sell a fully equipped, 5-passenger, Blue Cruise-capable, bi-directional charging truck at nearly the same price point Slate needs to sell a stripped interior with hand-crank windows. If Ford actually delivers on what it's promising, the Fathom isn't just competing with Slate on price, it's competing with Slate while offering meaningfully more truck for the money. That's the real shake-up here. For years, affordable EV truck and well-equipped EV truck have been two completely separate categories. You picked one or the other. The Fathom is Ford's bet that it can be both at the same time without losing money on every unit the way the Lightning did. And that price war doesn't just affect Ford and Slate. Every automaker with an electric truck on the market or in development just watched that $29,945 number land, and every one of them now has to answer an uncomfortable question. Can we get anywhere close to that? Rivian has talked for years about a cheaper R2 model. Tesla has teased a more affordable truck concept without delivering one. GM has its own next-generation platform in the works. The Fathom just moved the entire industry's baseline expectation for what affordable EV truck means, whether the rest of the industry was ready for that conversation or not. Why Ford had to do this, the China threat. Here's the part of this story that doesn't get talked about enough, and it's arguably the real reason the Fathom exists at all. Jim Farley has been sounding an alarm for over a year now, and it's not really about Tesla or Rivian or GM. It's about China. Farley has publicly said he believes Chinese electric vehicles could reach the United States market within 5 to 10 years. And when he says that, he's not being paranoid. He's looking at what's already happening everywhere else in the world. Chinese automakers, led by companies like BYD, have spent the last decade building electric vehicles at a scale and cost structure that Western automakers simply cannot currently match. BYD's cheapest EV sells for around $10,000 in its home market. BYD alone outsold the entire American EV market, every Tesla, every Ford, every Rivian, every Chevy combined, in a single quarter of 2025. And it's not just passenger cars anymore. BYD's plug-in hybrid pickup, the Shark, has already become the best-selling truck in Mexico, right across the border from the United States. Chinese EV trucks are not a distant hypothetical. They're already operating in North America, just not here yet, mostly because of tariffs. That's the operative word, yet. The United States currently has steep tariffs on Chinese-made EVs, effectively blocking direct competition in the American market. But those tariffs are a political decision, not a permanent wall, and Chinese automakers have already shown they're willing to build factories in Mexico specifically to work around trade barriers. If that regulatory picture shifts even slightly in the next 5 to 10 years, which is exactly the window Farley has publicly warned about, American automakers need to already have a genuinely cost-competitive product on the market, not one still in development. That's the actual strategic thinking behind the Fathom. This isn't primarily a truck built to beat Rivian or Tesla on price, even though it does. It's a truck built to prove Ford can survive in a world where the cost floor for electric vehicles keeps dropping, whether the pressure comes from Chinese manufacturers, from domestic startups like Slate, or from Ford's own need to stop hemorrhaging billions of dollars a year. Farley's Model T moment comment makes a lot more sense once you understand that context. The original Model T didn't just make cars. It made car ownership possible for the average American family for the first time by radically rethinking how vehicles got built and priced. Farley is explicitly comparing the Fathom's target price, adjusted for inflation, to what a Model T cost when Ford introduced it. That's not a throwaway marketing line. That's Ford telling you exactly what problem they think they're solving, what this actually means for you. So let's get practical. If you're in the market for a truck or thinking about your first EV, what does all of this mean for you specifically? If you're a beginner just starting to consider an electric vehicle, the Fathom represents something genuinely new. A real mainstream brand electric truck, priced close to what you'd already expect to pay for a well-equipped gas truck, backed by dealer service, a nationwide charging-compatible ecosystem, and features like bidirectional home power that most affordable EVs still don't offer standard. That combination hasn't really existed before now. If you're an experienced enthusiast who's been burned by EV hype before, and plenty of you watching have been, some healthy skepticism is earned here, and it's worth naming directly. Ford has a documented pattern of price creep. The Maverick launched under $20,000 in 2022 and has crept up toward $30,000 today. The Lightning was advertised at a $40,000 starting price in 2021, but Ford never actually delivered retail customer trucks anywhere near that number. Consumer models eventually started around $55,000. So when Ford says $29,945, the honest, informed response is cautious optimism, not blind faith. We won't know the truck's actual real-world range, actual base equipment beyond what's been announced, or whether that price genuinely holds through 2027 until pre-orders open and Ford reveals full specifications. History says watch that number closely. There's also a bigger picture reason to care about this, even if you have zero interest in ever buying a Fathom. Genuine price competition at the bottom of the market pulls prices down across the entire industry. It already happened with EVs broadly. Tesla slashed Model 3 prices repeatedly under competitive pressure. GM launched the Equinox EV specifically to hit an accessible price point, and Ford cut the Mustang Mach-E's price by $8,000 in 2023. If the Fathom genuinely lands under $30,000 and actually sells in real volume, it puts pressure on every other truck maker, electric or gas, to justify their own pricing. That benefits truck buyers broadly, whether you drive electric, hybrid, or gas. Now, before we get to what this all adds up to, quick ask, and I promise it takes 5 seconds. If you're finding this breakdown useful, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment telling me whether you'd actually buy a $30,000 electric truck. And if you haven't already, subscribe and tap the notification bell so you catch our next deep dive the moment it drops. This channel exists because people who genuinely love cars keep showing up for stories like this one, and that support is what lets us keep digging into stories the mainstream auto press glosses over. Now back to the Fathom, because there's one more piece of this puzzle that ties the whole story together. Remember how we opened this video? Ford lost an estimated $44,000 on every single F-150 Lightning it sold. The company took a $19.5 billion write-down and killed its flagship electric truck entirely. By almost any measure, that should have been the end of Ford's electric truck ambitions for years. Instead, less than 2 years later, Ford is promising a new electric truck for under $30,000, a swing of nearly $75,000 in unit economics, from a truck that bled money on every sale to a truck engineered from the ground up to be profitable within a year of launch, according to Ford's own stated goals for the universal EV platform. That is one of the most dramatic reversals in modern automotive history, and it didn't happen through marketing. It happened through a genuine ground-up rethink of how the vehicle gets designed, sourced, and physically assembled. Fewer parts, domestic LFP batteries, a radically simplified factory floor, and a name chosen to signal depth rather than nostalgia. And here's the payoff, the part that makes this bigger than just one truck. Ford isn't betting the Fathom's success on hype or on government subsidies or on being first to market. Ford is betting it on being able to compete on raw manufacturing cost against Slate, against Rivian, against Tesla, and ultimately against a Chinese EV industry that Ford's own CEO has publicly named as the long-term threat that actually forced this whole platform into existence. Whether or not you ever put a deposit down on a Fathom, this is Ford's answer to the single hardest question in the entire EV industry right now. Can a legacy automaker actually build an electric vehicle that regular people can afford without losing a fortune doing it? In 2027, we're finally going to find out if the answer is yes. So that's the Fathom, Ford's $29,945 answer to 2 years of losses, a $19.5 billion write-down, and a genuine existential threat from overseas. Whether this truck actually delivers on that promise once real customers get behind the wheel in 2027, nobody can say for certain yet. But the fact that a company that just killed its flagship EV is now betting its entire electric future on doing the opposite, building affordable, not building flashy, tells you the whole industry is entering a new phase. The era of the $70,000 electric truck flex might genuinely be ending, and the era of the electric truck as a practical everyday vehicle might finally be starting. If you learned something new watching this, that's exactly what this channel is built for. We dig past the press releases and the headlines to actually explain what's happening in the car world and why it matters, whether you're brand new to all this or you've been living and breathing cars your whole life. If that's what you're here for, make sure you're subscribed and let us know in the comments what you want us to break down next, because there is a lot more happening in the EV world right now than one truck from Dearborn. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.